It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Good morning, everyone. Jan Morgan filling in for Paul Harrell this week. He's on vacation. He'll be back on Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a show that's going to be packed full of just more wow information. Wow meaning, the sentencing yesterday of John Woods. More investigations to come, and then more sentencing to come the rest of this week. It's like every day it's a new punch in the face of Arkansas politics. And with me now is Jim Keary, and we're going to move away from politics a little bit, even though there are definitely some political implications to this. Jim Keary is an award-winning investigative journalist, nationally as well as in our state. And I asked Jim Keary to do some research for me on the issue of illegal immigration and how it is impacting us in Arkansas. The cost, how easy is it if you are an illegal to come into our state and access all kinds of entitlements? And so Jim has got some information. What he found out was just mind-blowing to me. Jim, I guess, of all the things that you've learned about illegal immigration in our state, what was the most shocking to you?
The most shocking, and thank you for having me on the show, and most shocking was that half of the immigrants, and most of these are Hispanics, are not here in this country legally, that live in the state of Arkansas. And that's the highest of any place in the country.
Okay.
California, which is right along the
border. When you say high, now, let's make sure, I don't want people to lose that.
Okay.
Arkansas is #1 in the nation. Now, this is what shocked me. That's the shocker to me. Arkansas, #1 in the nation for illegal immigrants. I would have thought it would be California. Or
half of the immigrants in Arkansas are here illegally. Half of them. And that's been consistent for the last, or since the 90s. And what has happened is, they came here for jobs, especially in the poultry industry, and working as butchers and all jobs that were high, low paying and high work. But it also and it started in the 90s. There were like 12,000 Hispanics in this country, or in Arkansas in the 90s. And today there are over 200,000 that have immigrated.
That's a significant jump from the 90s to today.
Yeah. It is the largest immigration in the country of immigrants, especially from Mexico and Central America.
So for anyone who's questioning this, I want you to cite where did this information come from? We're not just pulling off of Snopes or something.
No.
Tell the folks these are credible studies.
Well, actually, there is
the Pew,
the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation, the Pew Research Group, the Washington Post, and there was another one, the American Immigration Council.
Okay. And the census.
And the U.S. Census, they're using a lot of Census Bureau things.
So these are just what we know about. These are just the illegals we know.
Yeah, they suspect that the number is much higher than, I've got 228,000 that's estimated right now. I believe that number, their estimation is actually going to go down. The immigration population we're looking at, I saw a movement of them almost overnight back in the late 90s in Prince William County, Virginia.
Right.
They put in stricter policies where police were checking people's IDs and whether or not that they were in the country legally. I mean, we're talking about the local county. And almost overnight, a whole population moved to Maryland, you had just north of Washington D.C., you had a huge Hispanic community formed there.
So here's what I think. The reason I got interested in this is because when I was on the campaign trail, during the time that I was in the primary election. I remember traveling through Arkansas when we pulled into one of the cities in Arkansas. Both sides of the highway for a mile were lined with Mexican flags. And I looked at my campaign team and I said, where are we? Did we take a wrong turn? This is America. I'm sorry. If you like that flag, then what are you doing in America?
Yeah.
Okay. If you're going to come to America, you need to assimilate. You need to be glad to be here. We want you to come here and work legally. We welcome legal immigrants. In fact, most people in America are immigrants, but we want you to come here legally and work. And then we want you to become part of our culture, not bring the culture with you that was so terrible that you had to run from it, to flee from it. So, that was shocking. But then I started wondering, if you have this kind of number, if you have this large of a number of illegal immigrants in Arkansas, how easy is it, Jim, to access tax dollars, subsidies? We are spending quite a bit. There were some pretty big numbers here on what it's costing us, the taxpayers, in subsidies for illegals.
Well, there are actually some tangible costs. There's been some estimates of up to $200 million to $500 million a year that the state of Arkansas is spending.
$200 to $500 million a year.
There's not really a clear handle that I could find on what the actual costs are, but those are some of the numbers that are coming from Rockefeller Foundation, and then there was also the Federation of American Immigration Reform. Said actually the lower number. The Rockefeller Foundation said $500 million figure.
Right.
Now that is for schools, police, your social services. Now that doesn't even include the charitable organizations that are providing services for a lot of these immigrants.
Right. Well, some of those charitable organizations are also getting federal money.
Yeah.
In exchange for that. But this was actually one of the campaign issues that became critical to me, because we had two different legislators try to pass legislation, because I think our lawmakers have heard about issues, and they've heard complaints from constituents about illegal immigration and the accompanying crime that has been associated with it, as well as the monetary cost. So one of our legislators tried to pass legislation that would prohibit sanctuary cities in the state of Arkansas, so that we would not become another California. We don't want to become another California. And the governor stopped that. The governor stopped that legislation. He asked the state senator not to run it. That was Governor Asa Hutchinson asked the state senator not to run that bill. And so Senator Gary Stubblefield did not run it. And then we also had another piece of legislation that would have prohibited sanctuary college campuses in this state. And in fact, that legislation would have fined folks, would have actually penalized colleges who knowingly, intentionally harbored illegals. In other words, if you do this, you're not going to get your state funding. So there were, and of course, and that one was halted as well. So there were two opportunities to put protective layers in our state to prevent this from occurring, to prevent this kind of infiltration. And yet here we are. The problem is just as large as it was before, if not larger. And so one of the things I noticed in the study that the research information you found, was that they can access free health care. You do not have to have documentation when you go to a health department, right?
Well,
it's
actually, if you go into a clinic, exactly. The majority of Hispanics do not have health insurance, and so they're accessing whatever health care they can. Now, but I think some of the biggest cost is actually your education system.
Okay.
Up in Northwest Arkansas, where the greatest influx has been over the last 20 years, you have a population of children who English is not their first language. We're talking about 30% in some of the school districts in Rogers and Fort Smith.
So the schools have to hire someone to translate, because they're required to educate these kids, documented or undocumented.
But you also got to remember that because of the way the federal laws are written, is that a parent can actually object for their child to be taught in English. And that was the strangest thing. I didn't really have the time to go to explore that a little bit further, but I found that in a Department of Education document that they can prohibit a bilingual education.
That's incredible.
And,
so the schools have to pay for that, which, you know, where the schools get their money, we're paying for that. You know, I know about the education thing because I can tell you firsthand, this is an actual experience I have. When I wanted to transfer my daughter from a private Christian school to public school so she could get some certain courses, the day before school started, I took her over to get her transfer papers done. I took all of her documents from her private Christian school, her immunization records, her transcripts, everything that was needed, okay? And I go to the office, and I'm sitting there with her in the office, and we're surrounded by young people who cannot speak English, and there are no parents there. And the counselors are trying to get information. They just want, all they know to say is start school. And the counselors are trying to get the information from them. Well, how old are you? ¿Cuántos años tiene usted? You know, what, do you have any information? And the kids, and they had to let those kids start. Okay, so those kids got to start school the next day when school started. There I am with my daughter and all her documentation. Now remember, those kids have no documentation of any sort. Here I have all of her health records, all of her records, and they tell me, well, where's her birth certificate? I said, okay, I don't have that with me today, but I can go get it. I have to go to another city, get it, but I will have it and I will bring it tomorrow. But I want her to start school on time with everyone else. And she was not allowed to do that. She could not, she had to start school a day late because I had to go out of town to get her birth certificate. And yet, so there's even a different standard for people who are U.S. citizens versus illegals.
Well, you know, that's also with your food stamps, the stamp program. That there are some immigrants who can more or less go to the front of the line, that without any documentation at all, the way that the rules are set up, that they have 3 months where all they have to do is just apply until their documents catch up. Now, how many of them are removed from those rolls afterwards? There's not any way to find that out. But this thing says a person must be a U.S. citizen or an eligible, lawfully present non-citizen to qualify for SNAP benefit. That's not true. You actually have to. I mean, there are some that can say that they are being trafficked, that they are leaving for political purposes, which a lot of them are using because those are the buzzwords right now.
So if I just went to a health clinic, if I went to any of these entities, any of these agencies, and I wanted some freebies, if I just walk in and say, no hablo inglés.
Yeah, there you go.
No hablo inglés. No hablo inglés, and maybe then I could get, no, Jim, there's some amazing information here. We're going to go to a break, and when we come back, I want you to talk about, because here was something else I found interesting in all of your paperwork and the numbers and the research that you did, and that is the breakdown of ethnicity here, because I was expecting all of the illegals to be, or a majority of them to be, Hispanic, and believe it or not, that's not what you uncovered. And so when you come back, we're going to talk about that. With me is Jim Keary, an award-winning investigative journalist, and he's going to tell us about some of these issues related to illegal immigration in the state of Arkansas. And once again, I want to reiterate, I know Jim and I can tell you that we support fully legal immigration. Okay, we need the immigrants that are coming into America and helping us out, and we have plenty of jobs for them to fill in Arkansas, and there's a shortage of people to fill all the jobs that are happening as a result of the Trump presidency right now. So we welcome these people coming to America and working. We just want you to come legally. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to discuss this a little more. Stay tuned.
If you believe the Second Amendment protects your right to defend your home with a firearm, where do you turn if the government confiscates your gun? To the courthouse. The Founding Fathers created your Seventh Amendment right to a civil jury to protect your freedoms. The courthouse is where you fight the overreaching hand of government, and the Brad Hendricks Law Firm is where the fight starts. Call the Brad Hendricks Law Firm at 501-221-8255. 0444. The Brad Hendricks Law Firm in Little Rock, standing ready using the 7th Amendment to protect your Second Amendment rights. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas. Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Welcome back, folks. So glad you could start your day with us. Jan Morgan filling in today for vacationing Paul Harrell. He will be back with you on Monday. With me right now is Jim Keary, an award-winning investigative journalist, and he has been wowing us with information about illegal immigration in the state of Arkansas. And in case you're just now joining us, the most shocking thing that he had to say, based on research from very credible organizations, is that Arkansas, now listen to this, folks, Arkansas is #1 in the nation, above all other states, for the most undocumented immigrants, the most illegal immigrants. And Jim, I'm just having to tell you that is surprising to me, because you see all of these videos and these pictures of California, and you see all the tent cities that are there, and yet you were just explaining to me in the break why it may appear that California has more, but you're saying a lot of those folks are actually
the numbers are greater in California, but the number of undocumented, the percentage of undocumented here in Arkansas, half of the population of the recent immigrants are not documented, and that's from the Rockefeller Foundation and the Pew Research Group, and even the Washington Post reports it. And I'm surprised that it hasn't made headlines in this state. It really,
honestly, I haven't even heard anybody really talking about this issue until I was running for governor, and it became an issue to me when I found about the legislation that we had several legislators trying to put forth legislation that would, like protective layers to keep Arkansas from becoming another California. And here I find out that, my goodness, we've got a very serious problem here, and it comes with a huge price tag, Jim. I want to talk about the cost. This is costing, when people say, how is illegal immigration affecting me personally? Well, if you are an employee somewhere, it's affecting you personally. If you're trying to get a job, it's affecting you. And it's also affecting you if you pay taxes, because our tax dollars are subsidizing illegals through health care, through education that we're providing in our schools, because you don't have to have documentation. You do not have to have legal status to get health care in this state, to get educated in this state. And so, Jim, I want you to talk a little more about how this is costing the workers in Arkansas.
In the early 80s, I worked in Northwest Arkansas. I worked at the Eureka Springs Times Echo, and in just about every community in Northwest Arkansas, there was a chicken processing plant.
Right.
And they put these plants there in these small communities to provide jobs to the local residents.
Right.
And but apparently, sometime in the 90s, the pay of them, people didn't want to work in those chicken processing plants or poultry processing plants for the amount of money. It's a low wage job.
Right.
And so there were other jobs that they could take. And so there began to be an influx of immigrants, mostly from Mexico and from Central America, to take these jobs. There's some Asians too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Rockefeller Foundation, they've done a couple of studies in 2007 and in 2013.
Right.
And they're showing that the poultry industry is actually able to pay less wages than what it would have been for native Arkansan, and it's between $52 and $95 million a year. Now, you think of that. That's less that people are putting into their pocketbooks.
Unless it's going into our economies as well.
It is going into our economy, but you got to remember, most of these immigrants are sending 20% of what they make here back home.
That's why I said that. Less money going into our economy.
But the thing that's interesting was I found in one study was that most of the jobs that are being taken are from the African American community.
Okay.
So it's actually affecting blacks. Now, I did a spreadsheet on unemployment in Arkansas.
Okay.
And it goes all the way from 1992 to 2017. Now, you still had rising unemployment when you had an influx of immigrants, and it continued up there. And these are people who apply for unemployment. So these are people who are actually legal alien or legal residents,
right?
And for the first time, we're seeing a decline, although there is an influx, according to the Census Bureau, of immigrants into the state of Arkansas. I predict, though, that we're going to see a decline, because for the first time in the history of the state of Arkansas, the unemployment of African Americans in this state is not twice as high as the unemployment rate in this state. It has always been twice as high. Like right now, it's close to being the same, around 4%.
And so you attribute this to the Trump presidency?
No, well, I think that the reason why the Trump presidency is important is because they're being more aggressive on making sure that illegal immigrants are detained and sent back to their countries. And so those jobs that had been filled by over 100,000 people in the state are now being filled by Arkansans. That's what I suspect is happening. And you look at the spreadsheets and you look at the numbers, and I think there's actually we're going to see a decline in the number of immigrants. Either that, or there's a large number of jobs somewhere out there that just kind of appeared out of nowhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I tell you what, this has been some amazing information. Is there where are the places that people can access this? Because it unfortunately, unless we can talk to folks at Conduit into just putting all this on their website, so maybe, and I will talk with them about that later today, so that people can just go to one place, www.conduitnews.com. Hopefully, we can just give all this information to them and let them share it so people know, because this is from a variety of different sources, but all the sources seem to be telling the same thing. The picture is all one general story, which is,
if you go to the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation and look under just on immigration, just Google it.
Okay.
You'll find most of this information.
Okay.
Because they have done some wonderful studies. There was one I was reading last night that was actually a PhD dissertation on impact on education in Arkansas.
Right.
And how many people. I mean, like some of the small school districts in Northwest Arkansas have a third of their population or English is not a first language, and that is that. I mean, I know just covering school districts.
That just makes me angry.
Yeah.
This is America. We speak English in America. All right.
Yeah.
We are hitting out a hard break, Jim. We're going to be talking with you more a little later in the show. But coming up after this break, U.S. Congressman Bruce Westerman of Arkansas is going to be talking about what they're doing on the federal level on the immigration front after the 7 o'clock break. We'll see you then.